First of all, welcome everybody, speakers and participants to the first formal meeting that we have in terms of the findings of the second edition of the Global Data Barometer. We've been working for quite a long time in this second edition, together with thematic partners and also with visionary partners that are here with us to collect data on several topics related to the state of data for the public good in different countries, 43 to be exact, in this edition, covering countries in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. So we are here with our partners from ILDA, from LDRI, and from the Caribbean Open Institute to help us share the results and some of the findings that we can get throughout the process. Let me introduce, first of all, our speakers here. We have, in terms of the Global Data Barometer, the team that was working in the second edition, David Zamora, it is the capacity building lead. He is a consultant specializing in digital transformation, transparency, open government, and open data, with an extensive experience in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. Thank you, David, for joining us. We also have Gloria Guerrero. She's the Executive Director of ILDA. That is the Latin American Regional Hub that help us collect the data in the whole region. Is a public policy expert focused on open data, technology, and human rights. Thank you, Gloria, for being here and for all the work and support that ILDA is providing to this project. We have Kesia Munyao. Hopefully I'm saying it right. She is LDRI's Community of Practice Lead, and she is a researcher specializing in evidence-informed policy, regulatory frameworks, and data-driven development. And she was also coordinating many of the researchers in the African region and the collection of the data. And we have also Yacine Keladi. He is the co-founder of the Caribbean Open Institute. He's an economist and digital development expert with over 30 years of global experience. So basically, the idea today is to listen to the findings that they have from each of the regions and also having a little bit of discussion looking forward to what is important for each of the regions and particular countries to look in the coming month. So in that sense, just kind of as a starter, I would like to say that apart from the regional partners that are here to discuss the finding with us, we also had the help, the support, and the knowledge of thematic partners that have been working with us since the day one to develop the different indicators and in the different clusters. So we have work with organizations that are working in different areas, just for example, Open Government Partnership, Transparency International, Open Contracting Partnership, Open Ownership, and also Land Portal. So these are all organizations that were working with us to help us develop the indicators and the cluster and also review the data once it was collected. So I don't want to take too much time talking about the particularities of the methodology. The only thing that I want to say is that there were 27 indicators, primary indicators, together with secondary indicators from trusted sources to provide a general idea of how each of the countries look like and each of the regions look like in terms of the ecosystems or data ecosystems there. We could do this, in a way, because of the support of also the financial support of some organizations. For example, IDRC, that is supporting this project since day one, since the first edition, and also we had the support of the Inter-American Development Bank, apart from the regional and the thematic experts. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let David tell us a little bit in general about the findings of the second edition, and then we are going to move forward to our regional guest, to tell us a little bit in depth about each of the regions. So David, if you want to start, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Silvana. Thank you for that introduction and that kind of presentation. So if you allow me, I'm going to quickly share a very small presentation. There. Let me just please hear a confirmation that you can see well. Great, I see.
Perfect.
Okay, that's great. So I'm gonna take just a few minutes to present and discuss perhaps just key findings related to this second edition of the Global Data Barometer. Um, Here you can see some of that. A very important finding that we have in our report that you can see also in our website that I think it's relevant for us to discuss quickly. So you can see here that governance frameworks are crucial for making data both available and usable. The barometer confirms a positive correlation between governance and data availability, but it also reveals implementation gaps, particularly in countries with weaker competencies. So this is the main conclusion that we can see from the chart on the right. On this chart, you can see a couple things. On the y-axis, you can see the governance score. This is the score that countries have achieved in regulatory frameworks, regulatory data frameworks. And then on the other axis, you can see the availability score. So um, here you can see the score that the countries are receiving in terms of the data that it's available. So what we're finding and what we can see here, that is something that we also found on the first edition of the barometer, is that there is a correlation between the regulations that require data to be available and that data that is actually available. Something that you can see also from this chart is the color differences between countries. And that color differences shows capabilities. So it's a score related to capabilities. So you can see countries with a darker green, and those countries have a stronger correlation between governance and availability against countries on lighter green, which are countries that have weaker capabilities, and thus we can see a higher lack of compliance with data availability. Even regulations may request for that data to be available. So that's something that we can see from the evidence collected from the barometer. Very connected to that idea, we can see that the presence of regulatory frameworks alone does not guarantee effective implementation of data. So if I may point the attention to the very center of the chart, you can see that a data being required by regulations and the amount of that data that is actually available. So we can see that even though there are countries, even though countries require data to be published, only 62% of the countries are actually publishing some of that data. And there are about 30% of countries that even though they are required to publish data, they don't have data available. And that confirms this issue of lack of compliance or some weaknesses in terms of capabilities for countries to actually have available the data, even though they are being requested to have it. And we wrote here just a couple simple examples to maybe show this with even a little more clarity. For example, political finance data is required to be published by 70% of the countries, but only 42% of them comply. So only 42% of countries actually do release some of political finance data. And beneficial ownership data is required to be collected by 88% of the countries, only required to be published by 37% of those countries, and even only 7% of the countries comply with that publication of data, just to see with a little more details this situation. Moving into another finding, another topic, we can see that data skills and competencies are essential, as we have been saying. But advanced data skills, for example, in AI and data analysis and sustained training efforts are lacking. This is also something that we found from the data that we collected among the different countries. And the training that is available on data also is often focused on non-technical stuff, overlooking those directly managing the data. So the top area of the chart, what we can see here is actually a focus on training on non-technical stuff, and about 40%, let's say, of the training actually being directed to people who is really managing the data. So this is this fact that we're mentioning about not that much of focus for the technical people who are actually dealing with the data. And then from these other areas of training, you can see at the bottom here, very important areas of training related to data that are also quite weak. So as we said, AI training, we are seeing this only happening in about 27% of the countries. And then data analysis training also quite limited in about only 30% of the countries. So again, emphasizing this fact that how important are capabilities in order to have compliance with the frameworks that we have governing how data is managed, shared, protected, and so on, and some challenges in how prepared, let's say, our officials in order to comply to that. Also, this is a very important thing in terms of open data. This is another key finding. So I think we're not new in discovering this, but we have some evidence at least to support it. But we are saying here that so open data is at crossroads. Active government-led initiatives are in decline, and the percentage of countries with no open data initiative has doubled since the barometer's first edition. So you can see here in this chart, the blue line represents the results from the second edition, and the green line, the results from the first edition. So we're seeing a decrease in the amount of active data initiatives, right? This is something that we can see here. Also, we are noticing that now there are appearing data initiatives that are led by non-government actors. So this also is something that it's happening and that we are noticing. And also the amount of countries that don't have an open data initiative has also increased significantly. So what we're seeing here, as I said, is it's important problems in terms of what's happening with the open data initiatives in the very last years. I think there's one or two more findings, quick findings I want to share. This one is specifically related to interoperability. So the focus of this finding is related on how much data sets are capable to talk to each other. So what we are seeing is that there are fragmented data sets that prevent the effective tracking of money, power, and influence. 88% of the countries indicated a total lack of data interoperability across political integrity and thematic data sets. So very, very high percent of the countries that we studied are totally recognizing that their data is not capable to communicate to each other. Only two countries, those are the ones that we see in the chart, were the ones that were able to identify the existence of common identifiers. So this capability that allows two different data sets to interact to each other, to talk to each other. So we're seeing here that the common identifiers available are basic common identifiers related to public officials, or there are some others related to companies' unique identification numbers. But when we try to have different data sets communicate to each other, so these are these other lines that you see here in the chart, we're seeing a lot of difficulties that actually, as I said, data sets being able to communicate to each other. Finally, a very quick thing also that we wanted to mention is about AI. So while AI is increasingly part of national development strategies, we're seeing this a lot in national strategies. The data governance frameworks, for example, data sharing frameworks or data protection frameworks, are weekly guiding the use of data in AI development. So we're seeing these strategies that are incentivizing the development of AI in our countries, but the regulations are not moving at that same speed. That's something that we are recognizing. Also, there are very few programs that address AI, and even less programs that address very specific important things on AI training, like AI ethics and algorithmic decision making. So these charts represent a little bit of that, and I think I'm going to just stop here to not take too much time and allow some of further discussion and hear a little bit more from the regions and the countries represented by the regions. So thank you.
Thank you, David. It sounds like the regions are not doing that great, but I mean, I'm sure we have, and I know we have good news as well together with that. I mean, we've seen differences, for example, in terms of the frameworks of data protection. We've seen a different path between Africa and Latin America with a much larger coverage in Latin America than Africa, but also as the Africa is moving towards getting more regulations, they're also adding new articles more related to the emerging technologies that we are facing these days. But I don't want to go into the findings. I want to hear from the regions themselves. And I would like to start with Gloria Guerrero. And I would like to know from not only the main findings in Latin America, but also in particular about what you think about the findings regarding the regulatory frameworks in your region to think about how they enable data use for the public good. I mean, how the regulatory frameworks and capabilities are affecting the availability of data for the public good, and any other finding that you would like to share with us.
Thank you, Silvana, and really congratulations to all the GDB team, because I know this has been a very long period of time, like working and focusing on like having this tool ready. So congratulations to all. And I also think the timing for the tool cannot be more perfect in terms of the discussions that we are seeing around AI, and especially the challenges that David shared with us generally. And I will say that in Latin America, what we are seeing, maybe it's the consolidation, no, of the open data ecosystems, but this consolidation also occurs in a very complex context. We are seeing political divisions, but also deep inequality in our region, digital divides, and I think it's one of the main challenges and worries that we see is that institutional weaknesses are kind of appearing in terms of like maintaining those initiatives around open data. And what I would say, and
You're on mute now, Gloria.
Sorry, I think it was my earphone.
There.
Okay, now I'm back. So I think we are a region in transition. We have the regulatory frameworks, we have the laws. I think everything is on paper, but we are lacking implementation. So we also can see that there's, and we need more capacities, obviously, compared to other regions, but also especially when we talk about, and David mentioned this like generally, but we see a deep focus on Latin America, we see that we are also, especially we need to work on data protection and data management. We also see significant gaps that remain in that cross-agency coordination, and this translates into interoperability. And also many countries in the region have passed laws, adopted frameworks that align with international standards, but are not backed by enforcement mechanisms financial support, and institutional continuity. And I think the political aspect of our region and political changes are also reflecting that institutional continuity challenge. Sorry. Also, I think on the good side, we can see that many or most of the countries that have been measured in the GDP have established data protection laws. And I think also something that can be a good question and something that we can explore, it's if these have been influenced by the GDPR in Europe. And I think that's also something to consider. Also, we have a very active civil society. And I think that is crucial, especially when we talk about non-governmental actors that are maintaining open data initiatives or are even collecting data and for the public good. And I think that's very important. When we see Latin America, we see a very active ecosystem, historical organizations that are working on data, and they keep doing that. And I think that's very important, especially in the discussion that is coming with AI. Also, we see that Brazil and Chile are leading data management and digital governance, and obviously they are also have published AI strategies by now. And I think we see a shift in some countries from the first edition to this one, but now we can highlight that Brazil and Chile are really working on data management, and I think that's super important. And even several countries in the region have interoperability frameworks. The data sharing aspect regionally is obviously also lacking, and we can say that we have like data fragmentation and maybe a little bit of low interoperability regionally and nationally and subnationally. So that's a big challenge. And I think something that I think we have like for a good opportunity and we need to keep working on, it's to strengthen capacities, obviously, ensure that interoperability, especially when we talk about what's coming with AI, and also advancing real inclusion. I think also the agenda shows that inclusion it's kind of low, and we need to start working and thinking about differently about how we use data for the public good, but to include more people and more groups in that discussion, and to strengthen the public leadership, but also how we guarantee institutional strengthening, but also how I think we have the laws, and I think that's the most difficult part sometimes, no? To make governments to approve a law, to have a framework, and I think we have been working for that for many years now. I think it was like maybe in the last decade, the sweet spot for Latin America was to have open data laws, open data portals, open data frameworks, etc., and to make that data available. But I think the challenge that is coming for the future, it's how we implement those laws, how we translate the paper into reality and into implementation, and to develop and guarantee stronger capacities among government, civil society, academia, etc. So I will leave it by now, and yeah, we can continue in my next intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Yes, you are completely right. I mean, we can see that the coverage of many of the legislations is basically close to total in Latin American countries. And as I was mentioning before, and probably was in David's slides, one of the things is, for example, in data protection, that they've been enacted for like several years now, in some cases decades. So there's a need for an update in some cases. Some clarifications about the methodology that probably I should have said before, but it's good to have it now, is that the comparison is not so linear between one edition and the other, mostly because we did an update on the methodology with not only the feedback from the regions and the researchers, but also the thematic partners that were there with us looking at each of the clusters to see which ones or which indicators we need to improve, which ones we need to remove and keep, and doing some methodology updates. So that's the reason that in many cases the comparison, I mean, if some country got, I don't know, 20 in a particular topic and now 25 doesn't exactly mean 5 points of difference. So there are some things and there are more explanations in our website, in particular in the one related to the comparison with the first edition. And also we are preparing several blog posts explaining each of the comparisons with the different topics. Now, moving to Yasin, he's going to talk about the Caribbean and some of the top priorities. We cover 5 countries, if I remember correctly, and one of the updates of this new edition was to include Barbados. That wasn't included in the first edition, so in that case, we don't have a baseline to compare with, but it's good that we have now, from now onwards, information about Barbados to look into the future. But Yasin, the floor is yours to tell us a little bit about what you found in the Caribbean countries.
Yes, thank you very much, Silvana, and thank you to all the team for organizing this panel discussion. Yes, absolutely. That the Morgan Institute was looking to
The
implement.
sound is not so good. Sorry, Yasin.
Yeah.
We are not hearing you so good. We can, I mean, let's see if he's, oh, yeah, he's back.
It's better? Okay, so I had to turn the fan.
It's a bit,
We have
it's a
many
bit better.
controls and closing noise. So that's the reality is here. Sometimes we don't have electricity. So that will make noise.
It's a bit better, but it's not great.
Oh, God.
This thing happened.
It's weird.
Do you
Okay.
do you want me to move to Kesia in between so you have some time to check the audio?
Let me just see if I change microphone.
Is it now any better?
Oh yeah,
Yes?
yeah. Yes.
Okay, so apparently it was a problem with the microphone on Zoom. Okay, good, thank you. So yes, I was thanking first the organizers and the coordination of the event, okay, and saying that Caribbean Open Institute was a local partner for the region. Indeed, it was 5 countries, Jamaica, Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominican Republic, and Barbados. I have to say, and this is a personal comment, that those 5 countries are, let's say, the largest and maybe the strongest economies in the region, which maybe the regional score might be different if we had included other countries. We have 15 countries, if we include Suriname and Guyana. And we have countries with a lot of social and structural issues like Haiti. So the regional score would maybe have been much weaker or different, let's say, if we had everyone. And we have 17 territories that are non-independent also. And so maybe, the reality these 5 countries represent a certain reality of the region. And okay, so across those 5 countries, we have quite an uneven progress. Some countries are doing better than others, especially in data governance, in capabilities or capacities and availability of data. One of the areas where all the countries have quite a good score is public procurement. It seems that there is some emphasis from the governments to promote transparencies in government contracting, and that there have been progress, let's say, in the region for improving accountability and reduce corruption in government contracting, at least from this score. The region, or at least these 5 countries in the region, are doing quite well in data infrastructure. They have quite, I think, 65-35 score. Which seems to indicate that there is quite a good technical capacity for open data management, technical readiness for hosting data ecosystems. Internet access also is one of the elements or the variables that have enhanced the score in social capacity with 87.16 in the score. But I have to say, we still have quite a lot of disparities in access, in particular in rural and underserved areas. And again, this is only for these 5 countries. Other countries might have larger challenges in terms of internet access. We have 2 countries that seems to emerge as leaders, let's say, in data openness and infrastructure, which are Jamaica and Dominican Republic. They are above the Caribbean edition average and the global average. So it reflects some political will and some capacity building, institutional capacity to promote data transparency in those 2 countries. Public procurement, as we say, is strong. Where we are very low across the board is in lobbying, political integrity, interoperability of data, land use. So these specific areas that were researched this year in the index in the barometer, sorry, show that we have very low, or we have big challenges, let's say, in these areas. And of course, that hinders the overall capacity of the population or the citizens or the CSOs to use this data to monitor or to promote transparency, and also the engagement and inclusive government is hindered by this unavailability of data or operable or usable data, let's say. And I have to say, I was hearing Gloria saying about the existence in Latin America of a strong ecosystem with a lot of non-governmental or CSOs working on data and on, in general, in digital rights, etc. And this is something we really lack in the Caribbean. We do not have any significant, let's say, NGOs or CSOs working in the region on these issues. We really lack that. In fact, we are constrained within governments, in particular in smaller states, smaller island states are small. The same person is doing everything from eGov to AI to open data, and they can't do everything. And same happens in the CSO area, where the same people who are working on environment, on gender, on violence, on climate change, on migration, are asked to add one more area, which is digital rights, access, open data, etc. And they're too small. We can't. I mean, they can't, or we can't. So often we have to be everywhere, and it's quite complicated in that aspect. Land management is, as I said again, the lower, and that's across the whole Caribbean. I think that the perspective and the recommendations that came out from the regional analysis is to work to strengthen political commitment and legal frameworks. We have there are some text here and there, some strategies here and there, but the implementation, and as David was saying in the introduction, no, is really a key gap that we have. We have, of course, to continue updating all the policies, the data protection, the data policies, the interoperability frameworks, when there are, and often when there are not, create them. Capacity, again, bring capacity across government, civil society, and in general, the population, journalists, data scientists, etc. We have a big gap, I think, still there to use and make something useful out of this. All of these data and data systems and access to data. Improve collection. Still a lot of areas where collection and interoperability is not, even if there are frameworks, it's not done properly, and we don't have the tools to work. Adapt to open data governance. We have some efforts done in Jamaica and Dominican Republic that can serve as example for the other countries and can be upgraded. And I would say for Dominican Republic, where I live in particular, we have to move from the formal institutional nice text to effective implementation and real participation, and that takes efforts. And I think that here is the thing for me, and that's a personal thinking, is we have to make sure that decision makers, politicians, etc., understand that this is not something that is there like data and nice thing, that this affects education, jobs, climate, debt, I mean, for the highly indebted Caribbean islands, climate change, everything. So if we are able to better this data ecosystems and to move towards a more better data, take better decisions, we are going to impact that. And this is, I think, the missing link right now. People don't see yet this direct link or cannot connect the dots to make sure that they invest in and they put the resources, the human resources, the technical capacities, the technical capabilities also, and of course the legal and environment to really have data that is useful to address the issues that we have. So people are hungry, there is health issues, there is migration, there is this, there is that. So how do we use the data to better address these issues? And I think this is the real, for me, point that we have to work on to show that we can, that they have to invest in this.
Yes, thank you so much, Yassine. And yes, and the data, I mean, not only for the Caribbean, but in general, the results, as David mentioned, show a strong correlation between strong capabilities, legislation, and the availability of data, of quality data at the end. And basically, we are going to talk a little bit more later about that. But in many cases, we've seen that there's a lot of emphasis in terms of strategies and initiatives related or naming AI and so on. But then we forget the basic ingredient, let's say, to get that is data. And if we don't have quality data that includes everybody, probably the results that we are getting out of the AI products are not going to be as good as we hope. But before going there, I want to hear from Kisha. I'm always saying her name wrong. It's something that I cannot do right. I don't know why. Even though I tried so many times and we've been speaking for the whole year, but still, I found it really difficult. But she's been working with the African researchers. She's part of ALDRI, a regional partner, and you've been working with all of them, collecting the data and also reading the results. So in that sense, I mean, we want to hear from you. What are your main points coming out of this year's results, covering 21 countries in Africa? We know there's still a lot of room to cover more countries, and hopefully in the future we can do that. But so far, I mean, what's your main points or impressions about the data collected in the African countries that we covered this year?
Thank you so much, Silvana, and thank you for bringing us to have this discussion and for the success and the release of this report. I'd say in the African region right now, open data initiatives are still at a critical juncture, but I'll still like to acknowledge that there's still some progress, even not that as perfect as we'd want to be, but we're still moving up the ladder. As given in the trends and in the findings and during this research, we're still seeing most of these initiatives being led by the non-state, and which are these civil societies and private sectors. While initially, in the essence, these initiatives should be led by the government. So there's still some gaps there. Though the barometer was exploring how these existing frameworks support open data reuse, and although many countries are publishing data, they still need to format. They still need them to be in the right format. As during the research, we'd see some of from the evidence that most of this data is available, but the data is not being published and not meeting the core open data standards, such as the machine readability, open licensing, which limits reusability, but this is still a work in progress. We hope in the next coming edition that we'll be able to see better trends in this area. However, we have still some success. We have some countries that are doing great. In the region, we're able to note Tunisia has made some notable strides. It's been able to have a legal framework for open data reuse, which recognizes the National Open Data Portal, and it also encourages data reuse through specific licenses and initiatives like the hackathons, which are both being led by the government and the non-governmental state. So looking in terms of supporting accountability and tracking power and political influence within the region, within the study, we were looking at key indicators such as political finance, interest and asset declarations, beneficial ownership, company data, which are useful keys in tracking how public resources are being used within these countries, how transparency and power dynamics, power and political dynamics are being played within the regions. But still, we still see there are strong regulations here that account for data to be collected in these areas that I'm talking about. But there's still a gap. There still remain gaps in publishing this data. So yes, there are regulations that mandate for data to be collected, but from the evidence, and there still remains gaps which bring about issues of transparency and accountability. just in moving forward, I think for the region, the government have a lot of work to do. Mostly just moving beyond policy declarations, which you've seen. The policies are there, but policies and the regulations are there, but implementation still lacks. So aside from that, there's also need to invest in the technical institutions, supporting human capacity, training the key technical staff who are handling this data, and just for more required for a sustainable and impactful data reuse within the regions. Also, they are an essential tool to unlocking the open data potential within the region, which is a key tool for accountability and democratic governance within the region. Thank you, Silvana.
Thank you so much. We see that in many cases, I mean, even though the countries, even without, I mean, inside each of the regions are completely different. I mean, we've seen a general trend towards the need to work on implementation of regulations, or moving from declarations to regulations and to implementation. And overall, I mean, improving the capacities in each of the countries and each of the regions to be able to produce the data and also release the data. We have one question there in the chat that is, I mean, related to also what we want to know or want to explore moving forward. That is about the institutional, technical, and human capacities in place to meet the challenges posed by AI. I mean, here it says in Latin America, but we can apply to the different regions. I mean, also the Caribbean and Africa, and also the role of civil society. In many cases, Gloria mentioned the important role, the strong role of civil society in Latin America, but also on the other side, Yacine mentioned the lack of actors or stakeholders in not only civil society, but maybe that in some cases, I'm guessing also private actors are playing some of the roles that are vacant by civil society. And I know that in Africa also, depending on the country, there is a difference of presence of civil society actors and how they all play a role in looking towards the challenges that are being posed by AI development and different type of technologies emerging these days. Whoever wants to go, from David, Gloria, Kesha, Yacine, the floor is yours. Yacine, yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we have this discussion since, I mean, in this region since 30 years. We started with telematics, then ICT 4D, then digital development, and now data and AI and data governance. Is how do I work with those who are not in my field? So those who are working on gender rights, on climate change, on agricultural livelihoods, and how can I embed the concerns that we have or that we bring, let's say, to the table, or into their day-to-day thinking and strategies. So if I want to work with people who are in gender, I need to see how is this lack of data, or how would their good data help them do better in gender or in climate or in this. So it's the same with the governments and with the CSOs, the few CSOs that we have, and see how we can embed those that we in, let's say, the digital world or the digital ICT, whatever data spaces that we talk about, how we can bring this conversation into their sectors with their concerns and their languages. And let's not talk from our objectives as data, but let's talk about from their perspective as what they're doing, and see how we can. I mean, for me, that's the only way we can really gather and have them, join the voices. They say, okay, I'm a gender, but I think that we need data on this and that because this is going to impact. So, and then we can join forces. Otherwise, it's very difficult. I mean, that's for me the key.
Yes, basically looking at the problems and trying to solve them instead of looking at solutions and trying to find the problem that fits that particular solution. Gloria, yes, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Also, thanks, Rosario, for the question. And if I would ask, like, are the capacities in place? No, I think they are not. We need to work on them, but also I think it's going to be very challenging. And I think it's something that we need to think together. And also I think my wish is that policymakers, donors, international cooperation are able to read this report and to make that connection. If data it's not in place, if frameworks are not implemented, and we are not connecting AI strategies with data governance frameworks, we are lacking like a big part of the problem and of the challenges that are going to come in the future. I think in this context, where we are seeing a reduction in international cooperation, in funding for civil society, that also is going to be very challenging for many organizations to keep working on these issues, to keep creating spaces with governments, with decision makers, but also we need to bring the private sector into the conversation because they are, in many countries, leading the development of AI, the implementation, or they're even working with governments in the region to implement AI systems that are working on a very, as we see, or like incomplete data systems. So I think we need to address this issue. We need to talk about it more openly, to have more conversations, but also we need to bring like all actors, not just government, civil society, also donors, international cooperation, private sector, and to see what's the connection around these topics. Because I think if we not address them right now, in the future, it's going to be very difficult to track, okay, the problem was data quality, and we are not investing in that anymore, or even we are not investing in open data. And if we want to use AI for the public sector, and for public issues, I think that's a connection that we need to do right now.
Thank you, Gloria. And again, thank you, Rosario, for the question. And in many cases, I mean, in correlation with that, not only talking about all the stakeholders included in the conversation, but also in the data. I mean, one of the things and one of the areas that we explore in this year GDP, and that we want to explore even more, because I think there's so many things that we couldn't explore this year, but they are really important, is about inclusion. And in that sense, I mean, what we are seeing is that in many cases is kind of, we put it symbolic. There are commitments to inclusion. I mean, we were looking at, for example, persons with disabilities and linguistic minorities. And there are declarations, there are policies. In some cases, there are even legislation. But then when we look at the actual implementation of the legislation, going back to what Gloria mentioned at the beginning, we've seen a lack of policies in that regard. So not only we are not including all actors or different actors in the policies and talking about the different pieces to have good data for AI, but also we are lacking or we are not including all people in our data and the different problems, accessibilities, and yeah, we are lacking that, and there's something that we need to keep working moving forward. Is there any other comment, question? I've seen some cameras turning on. David, yes?
No, I just wanted to provide a quick number on this fact that Gloria mentioned, and you also mentioned, Silvana, on how we are seeing, on the topic on AI, like how we are seeing some progress on strategies, but maybe not the frameworks reacting at the same speed. So just the number that I want to quickly mention is that only 16% of the Latin American countries include algorithmic decision making in their data protection laws. So this is just a way of showing how actually there are important things that need to move together, but we're not seeing them happening as they should. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Sydney, if you want to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And it was fascinating. And when I was hearing you, I was trying to think, and maybe that's something interesting to look at, is what are the kind of correlations that exist between both the state of play in the second edition and the trajectories of countries with other kinds of measurements, like the doing business, the maybe even the VDEM, or because that would be, I think, super interesting to kind of see if especially on these questions of public procurement, are groups of countries that you've identified as moving positively, also moving positively in those other. So what kind? I wouldn't say causality, but maybe correlation, and maybe the causality can be inferred or explored analytically. But yeah, so that was kind of a. And is there a way to do that through the platform? I don't. Yeah, what kind of interoperability they would exist?
Yeah, two comments, and please, David or some of the regional coordinators, if they want to say something, feel free to add. Within the data we have in this particular edition, we test correlations with other international measurements and with the secondary data that we are providing. So in that sense, there's a high correlation between the results that we are getting here with other type of measurements. I don't have the report here right now in front of me to say exactly, but we can explore that, and there's a comment there. And also, we've seen positive results in some countries. The not so good thing is that they are the usual suspects in many cases. So in that sense, we are seeing good progress in some cases. Also keep in mind something that we should have said at the beginning, that we are covering with this assessment what is the end of August 2022 to the beginning of September of 2024. So there were things, I'm thinking right now, for example, Mexico, that Gloria is here. There were some things regarding policies related to access to information and the oversight bodies and so on that were not covered in these results because those things happened after September. So I want to be clear about that. And probably that also is present in other countries. I should say Mexico because I saw Gloria here. But those things need to be taken into account. If something that is happening between, let's say, October until now, and it's not reflected, is because the data gathering process was done in 2024. I'm trying to see the other thing that you mentioned was the comparability between the two editions. And in that sense, because as I was mentioning before, because of the changes in the methodology, it's not a straightforward comparison, but yes, Rosario, don't worry. Thank you so much. But there's a tab in the website with some indication that still is not the number because we can't really do a straightforward comparison. There are colors that indicate if it's a positive, it's a stable, or it's decreased in those particular topics, or indicators in that sense. As you see, for example, Barbados is empty, and also governance in public procurement is empty because we don't have a baseline to compare with. But apart from that, because we know it is important, the comparison, we are producing some particular pieces, written pieces, focusing on that to explain and to highlight the comparison between the two editions, because we know it is important to know how things go. And in many cases, we say the importance of this type of measurements is not the ranking, it's not who is number 1 and number 40, but how countries are doing against themselves. So we are focusing on that, and we are preparing a few other pieces to include in our website. I'm not sure if I replied to, because I'm thinking about the questions in different orders, so I don't know if I'm something missing. I don't know, David, Fiona, Gloria, Yasin, Kesha, if you want to add something, or if there's any additional question or comment from other participants. Silence. Okay, so if there's nothing else, first of all, I want to again say thank you to everybody for the role that you play in the data collection and the review and the different stages of the GDB, but also in being here sharing with us some of your ideas and your thoughts and findings from this edition. We are doing in the next few weeks some regional events more focused on the particular findings of each of the regions. So next week, LDRI, Kesha, and IDRC are helping us to produce an event in Africa. It's going to be through our social media, but if you have any questions or something, or you want to attend, please send us a message to the GDB or LDRI, and we can share the details with you. And then in July, we're going to have Hablatam con Datos. We are going to be part of that. I mean, I don't know, Gloria, if you want to say a few words about that.
Yes, super briefly, I will invite everyone here. We have the open call for sessions. Right now, it closes on the 10th of June. We'll leave the link here. We have Hablatam con Datos, our annual regional conference on open data, technology, and also we will have very interesting conversations around AI. And we will have a special event for the GDB that's going to happen in La Paz, Bolivia, from the 22nd to the 24th of July. So please join us.
Yes, hopefully see many of you there. And also we're going to see, I mean, hopefully many of you in different events, more thematics. I mean, we are working on different thematic events to share the results of the GDB. I mean, it's so big that we can cut it in different areas. So I invite everybody to look at the website, globaldatabarometer.org, the report. There are the options of different languages, and in the next few weeks we are going to also release the Portuguese version of the report that is not there, but it's going to be soon. So once again, I invite everybody not only to check all the information there, but also to write to us if you want to provide any feedback, any comment, any analysis that you'd like to do. We are more than happy to receive all the comments. And also in the upcoming weeks, we are going to have an open call for visualization. So we are going to do a visualization challenge. So more information coming soon. So as you see, there are many things coming in the next few weeks. But I mean, we wanted to start having these amazing speakers with us sharing some of the findings. We are just 1 minute about to close this conversation. This recording is going to be uploaded in the local evaluation platform. So if you want to check it and share it with your partners and colleagues, it's going to be there, and hopefully see you soon in other meetings. Once again, thank you for your time, for your knowledge, for your work. I'm happy to see everybody, and hopefully I'm going to see you soon in another event sharing more results of the GDB. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.